here we are for our just breathe with us, living in the flow, in the new earth, in the new energy, with the theme of self care for the month of April, with my dearly beloved friend Alexis Sorsha, who gets this all rigged up for us so that we can play together, dance together, laugh, and even cry, because all of this is part of the human experience. Thank you very much for joining us today for this very, very special theme. I would say eventually the most essential one, self care.
And I
Over
would
to
also,
you.
oh, and I would also like to welcome each and every one of you to our monthly live show, which has been such a pleasure working with Tanya in this way. It is so filled with grace and ease, this show. And we would also, both of us, invite you to visit both of our websites for all the different programs that we have. And we don't want to go too much into saying all of those programs in this program because we end up talking about other things so much anyway. So please do visit our websites for all the programs that we do. And also we do have, we would just like to give you a little bit of a hint. We have a wonderful event with some very special guests coming up end of July, early August, but we can't announce yet because all the details are still in the process of working out, but we're both extremely excited about that. And
Woo!
so and about today, I mean, last few weeks has been such an incredible, I mean, we do say so many times, oh, last week, last month has been so incredible, these times. But these last few weeks for me, I've been diving deep into self-love, into archaic stories, into mythological stories, and owning them and allowing them to be part of me as a human experience, because we've stepped into a very different era, and that this era does include us owning a much bigger picture of what we thought, even as being awakened and realized, we've still sort of played in a certain size of this big picture. But last few weeks have taken us, with all the coronal ejection, all this energy that is coming to earth is not to harm us, it is to help us, to surf us, to take us, to sail us into these new regions of ourselves. And so I am Mikael, and I am so glad and I am so happy to be with you in this way, because I too rejoice in these new times where I can be humorous, when I can be happy, where I can be joyful freely with you. And why? Because I've always been here with you. We, angelic realm, the non-physical realm, have always been here with you. And yet, as far as humanity is concerned, for the last couple of thousands of years, it feels like it has felt as if everyone has left you, that you've been alone in this world, in this universe. And yet you are a fairly new species. And as a collective, it is very important for every species to come to terms with themselves. And so we haven't left you, we of the angelic realms, what you call the angelic realms, haven't left you at all. We've always been here. Why have we always been here? Because there is no there. Here is a home for us as it is a home for you. There is no there and out there and here. It is just here. But we have just been a little bit slightly out of your perception. For you know that your physical eyes, human physical eyes, and your ears and your physical senses only perceive on a spectrum. If you look at the spectrum of light, if you look at the spectrum of sound, you only perceive a small bit of it. So we've just played in a little bit outside of your vision, of your hearing for majority. And yet those who have cultivated their perception, their psychic abilities, what you call psychic abilities, what we just call normal and natural, have always heard us. For them, we've never gone, for we have not gone. And so us of the angelic realms, we have always taught you, those who were open to this. We have created schools, boot camps, but what has all of this been? To own yourself, to come to yourself. And just like for me, Mikhail, I remember when I was created, I remember when I individually stepped out of that one, the one that is now many. And I remember the attributes of that one that I was given. And for many of you, you know that that was being a warrior. And initially it was exciting, then it became a curse. Just like for each and every angel that came out of that one was given at least one very special attribute within which they've had to find themselves. And why? Why are we cultivating this? Because within that attribute, whether it's teaching, whether it's healing, whether it's whatever it is that you feel in deep in your heart, that you have a special talent, that you have a special attribute from whom you call from that one which you call God, which we call the Creator, which we call the one that is now many. And you have dived deep into that attribute. And when you were at the bottom, because that's what it requires, and when you were at the bottom of it, you had your doubts. That's what doubt was created, because you have doubted yourself. Do I have this? Can I handle this? Do I know this? Can I do this? Is this gift too big for me? And yet it is there that you express this gift as well, because you've had to, like I've had to explore the gift in and out. And then we've come to realize that God has not disappeared, the Creator has not disappeared, but has moved to the inside. And we had to find her inside of us, to hear her, to feel her love, to dance, to fly, to play. And so you see, you dear human, you have this ancient, archaic journey, the hero's journey that you are replaying on behalf of your soul self, on behalf of your I am within this realm called Earth. And yet this realm is a home to all of us. It is a multidimensional realm, and you are now but just starting to experience and explore who you really are, and you're starting to own your shit, so to speak, just like I've owned my shit. And then from there, you realize that you are not limited to the one attribute at all, but it is up to you to discover, to cultivate, to develop within you all different attributes. For me, as much as it was fun and it was honorable to be the warrior through those wars, those incredible wars, but there was a lot of cruelty, there was a lot of blood. And I've had to then realize that I don't want to be just that. I don't want to be defined by that. I wanted to be a peaceful warrior as well. I wanted to be a warrior of spiritual things. I wanted also to be many other things. So like you, I am eternal. I am forever. And within that context, what does it mean to keep holding on to being just one part, to being a rescuer, for example? It does stop you. And what does it mean to be completely wounded? You, each one of you, just like I, have to find that healing within yourself, because you are eternal. Each one of us are eternal. And so within that, you want to experience the delicate feelings of what it's like to be making love with another, what it's like to hold a child, what it's like to be a child, all of these different gentler parts. You want to be sensual when you want to enjoy life. And so that means that you do need to move beyond your woundedness, regardless of what memories and mythological things hide in there that you hold on to, perhaps honors of the past that you enjoy because you think that if I'm not that, who am I really? But all of that needs to be let go of. Firstly, own your shit. And yes, we do. We're humorous. Now we laugh and we play and we allow ourselves to make mistakes and we allow ourselves to be vulnerable. A warrior that is vulnerable, there is no more greater thing than that for me. That I found, a warrior that can be extremely peaceful, that can be most gentle with the most gentlest child. And so you too, I invite each and every one of you to own your past, to own your mythology, to own your stories. And so you can step into this grander picture of who you really are. Because you have, as humanity, you have stepped, we have stepped, because I too am here. We have stepped over a huge threshold in the last few weeks where these two are no longer separate, but they've merged into one. And so all of the self-care now takes on a whole different dimension, a whole different meaning within the context of this. Over to you, dear Tanya.
And just following up on what you're saying, that self-care takes on a whole different meaning, a whole different context. It's incredible because some people, because they see us having so much fun and speaking of ease and grace and all the simplicity and that, think that it was easy for us. And it wasn't. I can really vouch for myself, and obviously by what Mikhail through Alexis and Alexis herself has just shared. It wasn't easy. Of course it wasn't easy. But that doesn't really matter, because the thing is, here on earth everything passes. Everything passes. The wonderful, the horrid, everything passes. And so it doesn't matter whether it's hard, whether it's not so hard, whether you're going through a rough period. It passes. It passes. Remain with that really here, very present. And sometimes also I come across this some people that when they come to the realization of something that is really simple, but that's right, been hanging around forever, like ever since they've been born and before, and then they're 50 or 60 or 70 and come to realize that thing, and then the ego comes in and still tries to cover everything up with this thing. Why didn't I understand this earlier? Why didn't I get there earlier? Why didn't I know this before? How could I have been so ignorant? How could I this and that? Please let that go, because that is so unkind. That is not self-care. That is not self-loving. It's not necessary. What matters is that you came to that perception now. That's all that matters. It doesn't matter if it wasn't a minute ago or a year ago or 10 years ago. It's now. That's all that matters. And by hanging on to that thought, why didn't I know this before? Why didn't I understand this, so on? What are you doing? You're just holding on to that thing anyway. That's the only thing that's happening right there. So I would say, if anyone listening has this questioning, ask yourself, what is it that I'm still wanting to hold on to? Why is this so seductive to me? What is there in this that I use on a daily basis that serves me? How does energy serve me through this thing that I've come to realize, and that now I'm having some trouble really letting go of, though I've realized I don't need it anymore? If you still think, why didn't I know before? It's because you're still playing with it. So within the context of self-care, that's really, really relevant. And in this moment, what I find, these last weeks have been so intense in terms of the invitation to even stay more still, even stay more quiet. And what I really notice as an even bigger shift than ever before is this clear understanding that it all comes to you. It is so clear at the moment for me, and in my reality it just happens exactly like that, that there are things that so along the way we're always shifting and we're always evolving and always expanding and always learning and always embodying more of our essence, right? And what I've noticed in this more embodying throughout these last weeks is this reassessment. So basically, there's a constant reassessment of what am I going to keep in my life, even though my life is already fantastic, right? So you always reassess. You always reassess. There's always, okay, what am I letting go of that? It's not because it's a bad thing. It's not because it's sort of anything of what we used to sort of have to reassess before, right? But still, reassessment continues always. So then you realize, okay, so what is it that, yeah, that still requires, even if it's just a little bit of effort, or something that I was enjoying that I'm not enjoying so much right now, so it's time to let go. And as I've shared before, for me the sort of the touch base is always enjoyment. So if I'm not enjoying it fully, it's time to let it go. And no matter how much I've sort of become accustomed to it, because we all become accustomed to things, because that's the way of being human in human form. But being in this merge with our essence, with the angelic form of us, is whoa, so innovative. It's constantly an invitation to let go, try something new, try it a new way, do it a new way, feel it a new way. And one of the new things that I feel very, very present at the moment is really even more stillness, even more, you don't need to do anything, even more just keeping your arms wide open and receiving even more and more and more. And this notion of self-care is precisely so deeply tied into, do you enjoy it? Keep it. You don't enjoy it? Let it go. And the benefit now is that I know that I can let it go and that it's okay. Before it used to be, oh no, my God, I can't let it go because I need it, because this provides me this and this and so on. Before it used to be like that, so it used to be very challenging, right, to let go of things that you've become accustomed to and that you used to enjoy, but now you don't enjoy so much. It used to be that thing, oh, but I mean, this is important because it provides me whatever you think is important. And now it's much easier. And I believe it is easier for everyone, because this new frequency that is available right now provides that ease, that you can, if you're realizing that something is not really generating that much enjoyment as it was before, that you can let it go. It's safe. It's okay. If you're feeling from your inner wisdom that it's time to let go of something, do it. Let it go. And then immediately, because everything is very instant, especially if you're flowing in your new energy and your new earth, everything is very instant. So if you let go, immediately you will receive whatever is behind the door of that thing that you don't, that is not supposed to be there anymore. So, and this can be the simplest things, everyday things. And another thing I'd like to mention within this context is the realization that this idea that we have had, all of us as humans came in with this idea, I am not enough. And fortunately, because that is such a blessing, because that has allowed us to want to be enough, right? To want to be more than enough. And I found out that it is a misconception. So we come in with this belief, I am not enough, but in fact it means I am not just this. So when we tap into I'm not just this, and then we start seeing, oh wow, I am this too, I am this too, I am so much more, then the I am not enough just starts fading away, because it was just in place as the illusion, as the other side of I am not just this. So this is also an invitation I would like to leave to everyone. If you do have these thoughts often, or not often, but they come about, that I am not enough, well, realize, smile, it's your gift. First of all, it's not true, because how could you not be enough? Because you are that you are. I mean, how could, it's just so interesting how we can believe something like that. But yeah, oh, I am not enough is coming in again. Oh yeah, this means I am not just this. Dive into that. Dive into I am not just this. And it will change completely immediately. It's instant. So basically, self-care is also about when certain beliefs come in and start creating a little bit of their kind of friction. We have the choice in that moment to stay with that friction, or to go into another kind of conception, into another kind of vision and perception, which we can tap into instantly by being connected to our essence. So notice, if your soul, if you, because your soul is you, okay, if you are unlimited and immortal, how can you not be enough? I mean, what is it even to not be enough? There is not even the concept of enoughness within the abundance that we truly are. So, a great act of self love, each time a thought like that eventually comes in, if this happens to any of you watching, but I'm sure it does, because it's something that every human has to move through and transcend sooner or later, is, oh, wait a minute, I'm not just this. Yeah, and you aren't. And we are so much more than we can even begin to conceive. That even with these new frequencies that are available to us right now, still we don't know anything. For me, one of the things that keeps on growing is the I know bugger all. I really don't know anything.
So true. I agree. And it's such a pleasure to not
Yeah.
push yourself into having to know things. It is just such a pleasure to be okay with the mystery of life, with the mystery of everything, because it's like you're sitting in this trust. You're swimming within this rivers, within the ocean of trust. So what does it matter if you know something or not? All of those, there's so many things that really just don't matter anymore, do
And
they?
they're changing all the time anyway. So, I mean, why stay attached to knowing something?
That's it, yeah. And like when you were talking, when I was listening to your beautiful explanations, I had to almost giggle, because I've had so many different experiences, and I that are similar theme to you, but in my own way. And I know that some people comment and say that they can't believe that we don't actually have big discussions before our show, but we meet, honestly, we meet 3 minutes before the show and just say, oh, hello, what a nice, beautiful color of your room, or something like that. That's the extent of our discussion. I mean, we do touch base between this time of our shows, but we just discuss other things and normal things, not the theme at all. And it is just amazing how we then go and experience, very similar. And I was also pondering on this, how do you be in this new way when you realize who you really are, and when you, like, Mikhail said, you own your shit, meaning that you
Yeah.
own that you're an angel, that you are eternal, that you are, because when you, and this is again for me that little difference, like you so beautifully have transitioned from that, but it is that difference where when you are in that box of the mind, it is and it's an ego speaking, and that's when it is false, and it is arrogance, and it is lies, because it is not connected to reality of who you really are. But when you step out of your mind, then you can claim your shit, and you can really say these things, not just say them, but own them. But it doesn't then go into that crazy arrogance, but instead it goes into humility, because you are just amazed, and because you swim in this self-love, you swim in this trust, and you are just I can't explain the feelings that arise. And it all has to do with just being this feeling part, this human being, the feeling part of the soul, the experiential part of the soul, where you are experiencing and feeling and dancing and exploring inside. It's all just this beautiful, incredible sensory fulfillment and feeling of new things, of new nuances, of new, you touch upon your soul, you touch upon all these different parts that you really are. And there's such an incredible freedom, because it's like you come back. That's what my experience has been like. I keep coming back to my oneness of self, where there is nothing, there is no difference. And then out of this joy, out of this kind of like this rapture almost, I then expand myself into all these different parts again. And it's just this kind of breathe in, breathe out of, who I really am. There is no limitation of how I can perceive myself, how I want to perceive myself. It just depends of who, what I want to do and what happens in that letting go. But again, it's also like some people would say, people that are in that box of mine would say, well, you're playing with all these energies. How is it relevant to the everyday life? It is relevant, extremely relevant, because it completely changes your perspective. Not only that you are in the trust, that you can allow yourself to flow, that you can allow yourself that complete letting go of the need to work the world, work your life, like in the mind. I remembered when I was much younger, let's say in the 20s, and I felt myself so modern and funky, and I lived in Sydney and it was buzzing with things, with new life. And the idea of caring for myself at that time, and it was beautiful, was okay, I have to go to the gym, I have to look fit and skinny and tanned. At that time, tan was still okay, kind of. And before it came out of fashion and they said, oh, the sun is bad for you, kind of thing, it came out of fashion like in a day. Anyway, so, and then people really looked at you down as if you're like sinning against, you're doing something really bad if you had a tan. It was funny. Anyway, but it was very different kind of experience. But for me, like I could play in those kind of really good experiences of what I thought was caring for myself by going down the list of what I read, what other people have said or sold, or they were selling their product, whatever, and it made me feel good until, of course, with all the exercise or perhaps doing yoga, I started to feel into that darkness of myself, the unprocessed things, the wound. And then I jumped out into, like doing perhaps all sorts of bad things. So it was this kind of real yo-yo. And that is why I see for other people also, it doesn't really work, because you are really operating from this mind, and the mind is trying to imitate what it knows to be true, that you are enough, that you are this grand being. I mean, even grand is just a word. It's meaningless when you realize yourself. It's just all of these words we're using that at one stage don't mean anything. You just are, I am that I am. That's it. There's nothing else that you have to add. And yet, so it's a real journey from when you realize, okay, so I'm trying to care for myself in this way when I read, and I'm not trying to put down what you read, because like we are collective in a way, that meaning that we're playing with many other people, and everyone has their own talents, and someone perhaps knows much more about the body, workings of the body, someone knows much more about workings of the mind. So we benefit from all of these things, and yet you have to then balance it out with your inner knowingness, your inner knowledge. And it's just such a different way of being that happens really on the inside as you're allowing. There's been years and years we've been talking about these things, and we've been learning about them from a theory point of view, and now last few years they really have become reality for those that have allowed, for those that allow themselves to really own it, to experience it, to feel it, to be it. It really is real beyond any of the wildest imaginations. And so, to step from that space of, oh, this is really not true, these are just imaginings, these are just dream, or perhaps someone could say this is a mental health disease that you're talking about, you know, when you go into this kind of incredible self-love spaces. Someone could see it as that from that box of mind. But because we've been on this journey for so long and we've cultivated maturity, we're spiritually mature, we don't get thrown off into those very unsavory spaces. We can trust ourselves that this is the time that we can step from what is just wishful thinking in some ways and what is reality, who you really are. That is that grand. And the thing is, from the wishful thinking to really owning it is just such a tiny step, but it is the biggest one there is. And what does it actually require? It does require just that incredible deep breath and the choice. Actually, first it is the choice. The soul asks, do you want to? What say you? I say yes. And then you take a deep breath, and it is. Then you're in experience, and it flows through you, and you own it. And it's such a different thing than just thinking about it. But your soul self is not going to push you. It is going to keep reminding you, because when you're ready, when you're ripe, you are ripe, you know, like a fruit. When it's ripe, it's ripe. It's not going to stay on a tree for 2 more years. It falls off. It's ripe, it's ready, there's nowhere else to go. You have to transform into something different. So your ripe fruit, you transform into something different, and then the new seeds again have that space to grow out of that fruit. You see, so this is like what Tanya mentioned in a different way. It is that continuation of life. It is not the end, the beginning. In kind of way, it is the end of the beginning, because the seed at the end of the what was, the end of the fruit, but you then grow anew in a different form, in a different way, and experience everything in anew. And that is also why we are also not limited by those things that we felt we were, because we were those attributes. Like many people do, you know, identify with a certain attribute, with the good and the bad and everything in between of that attribute. But we are not, because we can transform, let that go as a beautiful, you know, memory, as beautiful, gives us good feelings, how wonderful it is. But if you do want to move into your new life, this new earth, you do have to let go absolutely of everything, but accept your core essence of who you are. You let go of all of the good things, the good feelings, the bad things, the bad feelings, the hang-ups, the wounds, the everything. And what does it require? All it requires at this stage, where many of you who are tapping into this show, but joining us into this show, you are there. You are at that space. You know, all it needs is a choice. You hear a question and you say yes. And then you take that deep breath, or many deep breaths, and you move on. And you will see, you will find that so many issues that you've had become irrelevant, because they were part of that story. Old story. It's not that you have to resolve those issues. You see, when the old story goes through you and moves on, all of the issues that you had within that context, within that story, also go with it. They don't have to be resolved. They were just there for experience. You played with them, but many people still think that some issues, they have to come to some kind of completion. But the completion is you saying yes to the new life and letting the old life go. That's the completion. Within that old life, there can be many unanswered questions. As a matter of fact, most of them are unanswered, because you can ask those same questions within this new context, and you'll get different answers. You see, so to hang to some old things, it becomes meaningless. And it's so easy. That's the thing that I'm the most amazed. Alex, I'm the most amazed about how easy it is. All those things that as a human within this lifetime have plagued me, have tortured me, all those issues that have manipulated me, controlled me, how easy they are just to let go. I am not that. You just disidentify and you move on, and that's it. Over
And
to you, Tara.
that theme that it's irrelevant is so important, because notice, like, if someone is attached to the fact, I have to resolve my karmic ties and all of that stuff. Now notice, you in a lifetime, 2, 3, 10, 100, whatever, you did whatever to whoever, and then in this lifetime you're going to go through whatever that the other person is doing to you, so you can experience on the other hand what happened and so on. Okay, so if we were to have to experience the exact opposite, so that we can know the extent of what we've done, and talking about the warrior self, and talking about, I don't know, all of the stuff that no one wants to have done but has. Right. So now, if we had to experience the sum total of all of that, this would be an unending circle. It would be an unending circle, because the other person does it to you, and then you're gonna do it to the other person, and then when does it stop? It stops when you say so. It stops when you choose it's enough. Done. I'm done with this. It's over. I'm just letting go. So, for instance, if there's an issue or situation with a person, usually it will be people who are closer to us, that are the ones that bring us into our greatest awakenings and into our greatest moments of transcendence. So if there's an issue with someone, and sort of like you come to a point where and you realize, geez, wow, we're playing a game with each other, and we're giving and taking all of this energy all the time, and this is just the what Tobias called the sexual energy virus, going on and on and on. And oh wow, yeah, I don't want that anymore. I mean, yeah, why would I keep on playing that game? And you just let it go, right? You just decide, no more of that. And so, do you still keep a grudge? No, of course you don't. Do you still feel resentment? No, of course you don't. What do you need that for? I mean, that will just be more of the game being played out, but now in silence, and pretending that you're very wise and that you're letting go. No, you don't keep anything. You just let it go. So does the person still stay in your life? Do you still stay in contact? Well, if you want to, and then you will choose where your boundaries are, what you now allow and don't allow, and you'll be clear, and you'll be straightforward, and you will be able to be honest and not care one little bit whether the person likes it or not, that you've changed, that you're saying things you didn't say before, that you're doing things you didn't do before. It doesn't matter, because you are owning it. You are owning the option that you've given yourself to choose a new way. And if you want to choose a new way, either you choose it fully, or it becomes harder and it's not necessary. It doesn't need to be hard. It's really easy. It's really simple. This letting go thing is the simplest thing there is. But the ego, the human ego, tends to want to hang on to the stories. It's okay. I mean, you can hang on to the stories, but as Alexis was sharing so wonderfully, if you're ripe, you're ripe. So if you're hanging on to the stories, it just becomes painful and more painful, so that then it becomes so painful, you're gonna let go. And that's it. And this thing about being ripe, sometimes a person thinks, so an opportunity comes your way and somehow you didn't take it. And then to make yourself feel good, you say, maybe it wasn't my time. Maybe I wasn't ready. Bullshit. Bullshit. We've gone through this, and we've all gone through this. No, it was our time and we were ready. Otherwise it wouldn't have come our way. Simply, we were still too attached to whatever it is we didn't want to let go of, to go in that new direction. Own it. It's okay. Don't feel guilty about it. Yeah, it happens over and over again. It happens to all of us. And it's no big deal. You know why? The opportunity, a new one, not the same one, because everything is always something new, something else will come again. And then you will be more aware because you were aware about how it went the last time an opportunity like that for going into something completely new, into something that you feel, ah, yes. Oh, this feels so good. You know, when it's that thing that's really that invitation from soul, it's just like, oh, this is so delicious. This feels good in my whole body. This just, yes, right? So when you feel that, there's nothing to think about. Just say yes. That's all. Just say yes. You don't know how, when, why, what. Doesn't matter. Say yes. Go ahead. You'll know everything moment to moment. That's how it works. And you know why we only know everything moment to moment? This is what I've come to realize. Is on one hand, because we don't need to know more than what is essential in each moment, because it would distract us. It would then, we would create expectations and all sorts of stuff, so we don't need it. But on the other hand, because the new now is always new. So when you're living in the new energy, in your new earth, there's no knowing exactly how things will pan out. It's just not possible to predict. And it's not possible to predict not only for your human self. Soul doesn't know exactly how it's going. So that's why you don't know, because you know moment to moment as the moment shows up, then you know, and etc., because things flow. They flow and flow as the whole experience pans out, right? And the whole experience depends on loads of variables. Loads of variables. It's not only you living on earth, right? That's why we only know moment to moment and we don't need to know more. Because on the other hand, also, if we did know more, we'd hang on to that thing. And maybe that thing is not the thing that's gonna come out to be the thing, because then things will change and the thing will be something else. And we will be hanging on to something that's not the thing. So it's so organic, you know, the soul essence of us is just so authentically now that there is nothing else. There doesn't need to be anything else because there is nothing else. Really and honestly and truly, there is nothing else. There are potentials, there are possibilities. You go that way, and then the potential it unfolds. It unfolds in whichever way is appropriate, according to the variables available in the now. That's all. So, no matter how psychic we are, and we can tap into future possibilities or potentials, it does, there's no point hanging on to them because we don't know exactly how they are going to flow. So, in my experience, because of the self-care of just not even bothering to hang on to whatever is going to happen, and that's self-care, that's an act of self-love, not spending any energy on that. What I find is that what comes through, what comes out, what happens, it's way beyond whatever I could imagine, really. It's like, oh wow. And then there's like Alexis was sharing, this constant humility, you know, is feeling humble towards the beauty of what comes forth. It's just like, oh wow, what a beautiful gift. And you're constantly receiving these gifts just because you're saying yes, 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 all the time to those invitations. So that is self-care, is caring for your enjoyment in this journey so much that you're not being bothered by anything that you don't require right now. It just comes and comes. Of course, there are challenges. Of course, things show up on your path that sometimes require a little bit more balancing out. And obviously, I mean, we're on Earth. We're on Earth. We're human. We don't become non-human, we become more human. More human. Yes, we become aware of our superpowers. I call them our superpowers. There's natural gifts that Alexis, as Mikhail was sharing, that we come in with. We become so aware of them that we cannot not have them, or not just use them, because they're just there. They're there, and that's who you are. We become aware of being irreplicable, so no one can replicate those gifts because it's your gift. That is just yours. That's it. No big deal. I mean, for you, it's no big deal because that's just the normal thing. Just as in being psychic, as in being sensitive to the energies, etc. It's no big deal. It's a normal thing. And that I remembered you were sharing about grandness. What the hell is that? The thing is, the experience of living in the flow of essence, as I said, it's so humbling. That concept, it becomes a bit strange. Yeah, there is a grandness in the sense that it's so huge or beyond our conscious awareness that we can't grasp the whole thing. In that sense, we could say. But it's not a grandness as in grander than, more important than, I don't know. It's a very strange concept, the
And that
grandness
is
thing.
all that power game, isn't it? All of those
Yeah,
ways, being over the other, being
yeah,
more than, being bigger, or that's all part of those hierarchies of the
right.
old world that
And I
is completely
remember
meaningless.
those warrior games we used to play,
Mm, mm,
and
mm,
where we needed that, we needed that, to feel that grandness. And it's something, it doesn't really equate with soul.
mm.
um, and we do remain warriors in a sense, but it's not fighting against
It's a
anything.
peaceful warrior. It's a peaceful
Yeah,
warrior. Yeah.
I do find myself tearing down illusions, like
Mm,
with
mm-hmm,
a sword, like an energetic sword. I feel it sometimes. It's like,
mm-hmm,
okay, now let me rest the sword a little bit, but
mm-hmm.
tearing down illusions in that sense. But it's not, I am not fighting against
No,
anything. It's just
no.
like if I were going into a deep forest and I had to clear the way to move on. It's exactly that. So basically, in creating my new earth, I do need this sword because I do need to cut through, the densities to open up more space, more and more space for my new earth experience. That is what I find in terms of the peaceful warrior, is basically
It's a bullshit
creating
cutter. It's
space.
not a sword anymore. It's a bullshit cutter,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Yeah, that's it. A bullshit cutter. There you are. But it's really pretty mighty. It's like, whoa,
Mm-hmm.
jeez, I can
Oh,
carry that thing. Gosh, shit, I'm strong.
and I'm glad we had so much training because it's just like the ninja,
Yeah.
like,
And it's funny thing because I'm left-handed, but I carry that thing on my right hand. It's funny thing. It's really funny
yeah,
thing.
yeah. And the funny is because we have. I mean, I have let go of the sword for a while because
Yeah.
I was asked by the soul, okay, but it was actually the sword of
The other
battle.
one, the
Sword,
other
yeah,
sword.
it
Yeah,
was the
that
sword
one.
of battle. It was the sword of
Yeah.
conflict. It was the sword of being overpowering others and being overpowered by others. that
That
kind
one's
of
over.
sword is melted, is gone, doesn't exist anymore, because it is
Yeah.
absolutely not needed. And in these times, because there's so much happening to do with this power and all of that, it is quite amazing how, you know, for me, it's not, I've not even come into any situation, even though for the world, for people, you know, for mass consciousness, there's such battles right now. I don't even come into any situation where I would have to recreate that kind of battle
Yeah.
sword, because there is no one is battling me. I'm not battling anyone, and yet the bullshit cut a swords. I've got a few because I've got a whole collection, depending on what I just like.
Yes, definitely, depending on the situation.
You do need, because we are surrounded.
The crystalline
Yeah,
swords.
and we are surrounded. It's kind of like a swords of love, you know.
Hmm.
When we're surrounded by so much of this density, by mass consciousness and stuff, and you do need to keep cutting, because it just is so sticky, it's so seductive, it just, you know, comes in. So yeah, become really good with swords if you haven't, you know. But these are
But we
the
don't have the
analogies.
kind of the shields.
No,
It's
no,
not.
no.
There is a kind of a sort of a protective layer, but that is the layer of
Yeah,
love.
yeah,
It's like
yeah,
it's so loving that it
yeah,
sort of repels everything else.
yeah. And within, because you become slightly, you go into a slightly different dimension. You are not 100%. When you stop
Yeah,
playing with power, you are no longer fully present, fully physical in the
in the
world of
3D,
power. You're not.
definitely.
So you're a little bit slightly off center. So you're very safe, because all of those games of power are meaningless to you.
Yeah.
And these are such, like what we're talking about, are more fine experiences now, because we normally sort of talk about very grounded, down to earth thing, but these are down to earth thing. And we are now in this space where we can discuss these things, because you do, as you go through this journey, as you experience these things with soul, you do experience these incredible things that have no words, that have no prior experience, that have no description in any history of humanity, that because they haven't been experienced before. And you have
Yes.
to be okay with this, to just, oh right, wow, isn't it interesting? And I find that I always get that knowingness to know, or either, unless I know directly, perhaps I hear something, someone else say it or explain it in a beautiful way, and it's like, oh yeah, okay, I kind of knew it before, but they've actually put words to what I'm doing. And this is where the real wealth of what we've chosen, the choice to be doing this with other people, because you really start to so appreciate, almost to tears, the wealth of things that other people bring into your own life, because it's just this play and the dance and their own, like you said, you know, all of these gifts and attributes that we each have been gifted with. That it's just meaningless, like you said, oh, this one is more important, this one is less, because you can now really see the gifts, the intricate gifts that each person has and their soul has, and how they're beautifully unfolding them. And each is needed, absolutely needed, just 100%ly as any other. There is no. And at the same time, you do have to own it. You know, you own it and you be it. And even though it can feel, oh, this is some kind of fantastical thing, there is kind of like a still, you know, like when you are in those kind of deep states, you can feel, I could feel some little separations in these last couple of weeks, and I had to just breathe them in. It's like, no, this too is me, this too is me, this too is me, because I have been putting a little layer of that separation into some things. And before I didn't notice, but with all this energy that was coming up, it's like, oh wow, I had no idea. And you know, like when you then own this, now I am able to see a whole new vista again, and this play of light and this play of light, and not light as in a dark and light, but this new light and all of these new possibilities, and what the next stage of experience is starting to hold, is holding, that is starting to really come. But because I have let go, and I have owned, and I have let go of those old things. And like I was going to mention before, when you were saying, how easy it is to let go, and it is. And the most surprising thing about letting go is all these, toxic involvements with other people, previous partners, children, relatives, is just how freeing it is to let go. This is what I found was the most surprising of this, because I thought maybe there will be grief, maybe there will be sadness, but mainly it was just this rejoicing, this overwhelming sense of freedom and of mastery. I could feel myself a master because I could see how those things were keeping me trapped into those old patterns that had no victory ever. Like you said, it's just this constant going round and round and round. There is no way getting anywhere. Just
no one is ever going to win.
Never. No one wins. And in relationship with other people too, and this is why, we brought this larger context, because when you think of yourself just from a box of the mind, you can see these things. Maybe it feels important that you win the battles that you constantly battle, because this is what mass consciousness is actually uplifting. It's constantly saying you have to be a battler, you have to fight for your rights, you have to fight for your freedoms, and everything you get, it's not worth it unless you fight for it. That's the kind of a narrative. And yet it's just an ongoing thing. But when you step out of it, you realize it is all very meaningless, and it's been taking up so much of you. And like talking about that you didn't notice everything else that exists. And this is what happens when you are in this now moment. Now moment is that perfection. It contains absolutely everything. It contains the future and the past. So again, it's that mind imitating things, and it thinks there is a future out there, somewhere out there, and it thinks the past is somewhere there, and you have to travel, like the time travel or something, because it is never quiet and peaceful enough to be in the now moment. Because you know how hard it is to initially become into this now moment, because the mind keeps taking you out of it into the future and past that don't really exist. The future and the past of the mind are a real fantasy. And the future and the past that exist with your presence of the soul in the now moment is what is real. And they all exist in that now moment. And when you are so busy with all these other things, you don't notice just what a wealth of everything that exists in the now moment, and the choices, like you said, the potentials. Because when you are in the now moment, you can really see all that is here, and it's like that's when you really have a choice. You don't have a choice when you're in your mind. You have a choice when you're present in your body in the now moment, because everything is there. And then the next now moment, and the next now moment, and you feel safe after you've, of course, dealt with, you've healed, you've integrated. And this, again, is one of those challenges that, especially now with so many new ones coming, knocking on your doors, on each of one of your doors, whether it's relatives or friends, you realize, wow, they too are awakening. You have to remember that, what they meet in that now moment is woundedness, is pain, is regrets, is all of those things that you have already dealt with in your lifetime, that dark night of the soul. It is only then that you can really, truly be relaxed in the now moment, when the person has self-healed enough. It doesn't mean 100%, but enough to be able to stay with that deep breath, to be able to be okay and to slowly go on this journey of allowing, of self-accepting, of self-healing. And then again, of course, the self-care within this context is quite different too, because, like within the mass consciousness, it says that, okay, you have to avoid the dark. You have to run away from the dark. You have to hide from the painful, because the successful life often is sold as life where the person doesn't have to look at the darkness. So for example, people that are rich and famous and have money, other people envy them because they think that they can pay with their money to not have to look at the dark side of life. But so being real, being with your soul, being on this journey is also letting go of those kind of fantasies and ideas that the mass consciousness is saying, because self-care, instead of running away from your own inner darkness, from your own inner wound, actually you dive right into it. And for a time being, for many years, perhaps for a decade, then you actually, it's like from outside, it would look like you're torturing yourself because you're allowing all this darkness to integrate, to heal. But you're not, because firstly, you can't really do this unless your soul is present. And when your soul is present, it anoints you, it anoints your body, it anoints your inner parts, so that you actually are not damaged by what you've come to find within yourself. And a lot of the stuff within yourself is from this lifetime, but a lot is from your other lifetimes, from other aspects, from your soul experiences in God knows where. It matters not, you don't have to, but with the soul's presence, you can, all of that can integrate. And it's funny because you see quite a lot of darkness in those integration moments, and yet instead of being like normally people would think, well, if you're faced with this darkness, you would fall into depression and all sorts of pain, but instead you're actually getting better and better and better. You're feeling better and better. And even though sometimes you look like and feel like a truck has hit you, some of the days after huge integrations, you're actually feeling inside, you feel very different than what you look in a mirror, like you're feeling better and better and better. And some people I know have, and the body then reacts, during those times, and you can have pimples and you can have all sorts of things that mass consciousness would say, oh my God, what are you doing to yourself? You look awful, you need to take some pills so you can feel better. But the self-care in those times is actually to dive even deeper into all of that, because it is only through that you can then reclaim your freedom to be present in the now moment. You cannot be present in the now moment unless you integrate your darkness. And then this new light is actually the dance between the dark and the light of the old. It is the new child, it is a new birth, it's birth from that dance. It is not actually by suppressing the darkness or making it, I don't know what, it's integrating both. And then out of that, a new child is born, the precious child of new earth, of new light.
And it's important to realize when you're going through that very intense period of integration, sometimes people come my way and say, I only want to breathe with you to feel good, to feel better. Well, and I immediately have to say, well, for that, please don't come, because that's not gonna happen. Because now let's imagine a person is feeling really sort of frustrated, really bad and down and depressive, and then they come and they say, can you please just breathe with me so that I can feel better about myself? Well, yeah, I can breathe with you, but without an agenda. And then, okay, so let's breathe together. Okay, so, right, let's breathe together. And then of course, in that moment, there's a bit more stillness, a bit more silence. And what happens? What happens is that whatever is causing that sense of depression, that sense of being forlorn, lost, whatever it is, will come forward. obviously, I mean, it will become more clear because you're just coming into more silence. And if you're coming into more silence, whatever is making noise becomes apparent. It becomes there. And so now let's imagine, okay, right, so that noise is, let's imagine it's in your heart. So, okay, so let's go into that. Let's go there. So, who's there? Now, let's imagine, okay, it's a child, a little boy or a little girl, whatever, whoever it is. Okay, so how is this child feeling? Sad. Okay, why is this child feeling sad? Okay, going on. Right, and then, oh, but I didn't want to go into the past. You're not going into the past, for peace sake. That child is right here, right now, inside of you. What happens is that when we're going through integration, you're staying in the present and you're tapping into things from your past that are still present. And this is a really important understanding. So it's not that, oh, but I don't want to have to dive into the past, and that you're diving into whatever is right here, right now. So if whatever is right here, right now is causing you pain, started in the past, it's there. I mean, it's there. It's not that it's in the past. Otherwise, you wouldn't be feeling it. It's here. It's as here as it could ever be. So, okay, so, but isn't there a way of, just breathing to feel good and not have to go and look at that stuff? No, there is not. Okay, just being very, very real. No, there is not. Why? Because that part that is telling you, I feel like this, I feel sad, I feel angry, whatever it is, that part that is showing you that feeling, it needs your acknowledgement. Why? Because it's a part of you. It's not someone else out there. It's you. And it needs to be acknowledged that it exists and that it went through something that it wants to share with you, so that you can own it, so that you can then let go. Once you own it and you realize, okay, now I have the choice what to do with this. So do I hang on to those emotions, to those feelings that were created in that time, in that situation, etc.? Or do I just allow myself to come into compassion, to accept this, and to let go? And please, please be aware that aspects do not integrate just because you say, okay, I let go. They integrate as you are real. So just saying, okay, I let go of that, is not enough. It has to be real.
That's a huge point. Thank you for that. Is
Yes,
such a huge point.
it is. So it's not enough to say, oh, I choose whatever. I choose the new earth, whatever. I don't know. And I choose, yeah, okay. So if you choose that, then you have to be coherent with that choice. Because the aspect or aspects, whatever, that are showing up, they can only really integrate, which integrate just means merge back into you, not be separate anymore, right? So they can only merge, so just dissolve into one with you when there is no mistrust, right? So that part of you can only trust what it sees you being, saying, and doing. And the point is, our aspects, they are in touch with the core essence of everything we think, say, and do. So bullshit doesn't work.
It doesn't know. They know exactly.
They know. So, yeah, okay, so you can say, I let go. But then that has to happen in practice, in everyday life, that you're not attached. So then if the trigger comes your way, that was the trigger for that kind of feeling or behavior, that's when you show that you've let go. That's when you are different. You feel different, you act different, it doesn't trigger you anymore. You're okay with it. Then integration happens. So, integration is a thing that happens gradually. Sometimes when we are just breathing and that, and we tap into something and we go in there, and then there's an opening and we understand and all of that stuff, and then the aspect, whatever it is, chooses to come back home, says, yeah, okay, I feel it's genuine, and does come back home. But the final thing is the proof of the pudding. So it's only when in actual life, then you are no longer saying or doing anything that was what was before, then it really integrates. Then it's over. Then that story is really over.
And this is another huge point, isn't it? Because unless you actually then live those changes in your
Yes,
life, you haven't really integrated. You haven't
exactly.
integrated
You
if you're
have to
still
put them in
the same.
motion
Yes.
because we are beings of motion.
Mm.
Experience is a thing of motion. So things have to move through the experience, not just by lying on your couch doing the integration and really feeling that release. Because when an aspect comes back home, it's fantastic. It's, oh my God, it's so liberating. You feel lighter. You feel, whoa, wow, what a
And
release.
you're also changed, because all of a
Yes,
sudden you own what you didn't own before, and now
right.
as you integrate it, you're all of a sudden a different
You're a
person.
different
Because
person,
if
but
you
then you have
saw
to
your
show that.
That's right. Yeah, yeah. Because if you haven't before, you didn't own that, so you thought you were this, and all of a sudden
Yeah,
you realize, wow, I'm not just that. I'm also this. I'm bigger. So
yeah.
you constant, and this is what part of expansion is also, isn't it? So you're constantly expanding because
Exactly. You expand
you
into
keep,
more of you.
yeah. And some of these parts are so incredibly, how can I say, I found, to my surprise, it was like, because I've looked at my own darkness so lowly. I despised it. I really
Mm,
hated it. You can't believe how much. And then to go through that journey, and then to realize that it was actually, these parts were holding all of those things that I admired
yeah.
but feared I didn't have. And so these parts are incredibly helpful, because once they integrate, they also gift you with their incredible abilities. So then your
Yes.
life keeps becoming easier and easier, because you thought, well, before I could only do this, but now there's so much that you can do. And also, you realize that all of those events that I've missed, you realize all of those events that I've missed that were, I thought, in the past, the people, perhaps they've moved on, they no longer are living in this life. And all of a sudden, I realized, when I've integrated those parts of me that interacted with them, that those people and those events became alive, because they are in the now moment. And so they never really die. And this was such a beautiful surprise. Like, I find, you probably find that, I mean, all of us find that there are so many pleasant surprises as you're integrating,
Oh,
and
wow.
sidekicks, isn't it? That you
Yeah.
don't really think about before, but all of a sudden, and also just parts of me, for example, how people, as you get to a certain age or whatever, you learn, oh, I wish I was a teenager or in my 20s. It was such a beautiful time, blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden you realize, wow, those parts are absolutely in me, a part of my now moment. After they've
Mm-hmm.
integrated their wounds, your teenager is very much available and will gladly gift you with its feelings, with its
Mm-hmm.
incredible, with its this grandness in a different way that they have, and the
Yeah.
positive, and being excited about the world. So that now I can actually feel like a teenager. It's not like that I become that, maybe a not experienced, but I can
Mm-hmm.
certainly feel that excitement, or the magical child, the child that looked with these big eyes at the world. Wow, that can look at the leaf, that can look at the raindrop for an hour and not be bored.
Yeah.
I feel that now, after they've integrated that woundedness, because all of these parts of us, while they're rejected, separated, they are stuck in time. They are stuck in that wound. Like you said, they're not moving, they're not flowing. They're just stuck holding on to whatever they're holding on your behalf that you don't want to look at, that you don't want to own. And then as they flow through you, they release, and they release that holding on, and they become all of a sudden flowing again. And that is why, if people have heard to say, well, past is not set in stone, this is how past is not set in stone, because all of a sudden these parts are living, breathing parts of you, parts that are moving, parts that are dancing, and especially parts that are continually expanding, just like within you, with you, as you. And this is another great surprise that I didn't know before, that this is what happens. So your whole self becomes alive slowly and slowly. It's like you're coming back. That's what I had many times, this feeling, wow, I'm coming back to life. I was dead, but now I'm coming back to life.
Exactly.
And this is what, like, very appropriate anyway. Happy Easter, everyone. At this time of resurrection, resurrection became incredibly personal to me, because all of these parts that were dead, what does dead mean really in this context? It means solidified, not moving, like a stone. And all of a sudden they become living, breathing, filled with life, part of life, dancing, expanding. So we resurrect ourselves within this process, within this journey. We experience our own resurrection, and that's just such an incredible experience that you can't exchange that for anything, for nothing in the world or beyond or outside of it, to have these kind of experiences. And so going back to that, when people don't feel enough, when you actually look at these kind of gems and diamonds of your life, then you realize that this not enough truly is completely meaningless. It's such a fake idea of each one of you not being enough. For this is the kind of stuff that you gift your whole self as a human part of your soul, of your I am. You gift this kind of incredible experiences to all of you that is worth more than any diamonds, any gold, anything, any power, it's just priceless. That's the word, priceless. And so when you feel yourself, wow, I'm not enough, just you choose, I am going to step out of that. I'm stepping out of that. And like Tanya so beautifully described, do that and step out of it and be and own who you really are.
Yes, and I'd like to, I remembered that we were gonna share a painting from a friend, Corinne, because she has on her Facebook cover photo this painting called Flow. And because our show, our sharing is living in the flow, and this it speaks so much. I feel this painting speaks volumes. And so, we'd like to share it with you. Thank you, Corinne, for creating it.
And it matches the color of your curtain, so it's
It
perfect.
does, and my shirt. I mean, it's really perfect, isn't it?
Yes, I even can find this color, the pendant, this color.
Yes. This is just it. This is it. It expresses the what we've been sharing, basically.
Yes. And it expresses like all the little scribbles. That's what I like. In the last few weeks, I've been really feeling those codings, the encodings of the journey and of all the attributes, and the codings of a warrior and all of these kind of things in just such a divine and beautiful way, because they kind of do dance between all of this flow, within all this flow. And it is, oh my gosh, last few weeks for me have really been, and we had a bit of a chat, didn't we? Just this self-love, the radiance, the glow. It's just been incredible. and it's kind of like, you know, a reward for all of the hard work of that journey into the dark valley of the soul, whatever. It is just beyond
It's so
words.
rewarding, really.
Yeah.
It's so rewarding all the time. It's like it just
Mm.
keeps on yielding.
Giving and
It's the
giving and giving.
cornucopia of abundance. It's just always yielding,
Yeah, yeah.
giving more, giving more.
And gifting, you know, and to feel that incredible radiance and glow always and everywhere. It's like, oh my gosh, this is what I dreamed of, you know, as a teenager. That's what my
Yeah.
teenager dream, to feel that. Except that at that time I thought that, wow, I have to fall in love and find the man, and you know, and that's, he will give me that. And
Yeah,
the inner masculine is giving that. It's this dance
all the
between the
time.
inner masculine and feminine, and also then opportunities to express that in a physical way with another, you know, whether a
Yeah,
man or a woman with a partner.
whatever.
This is where the actual joy, the dance really starts, because that's what it feels like to me. It's like, wow, we've done all that hard journey, so many of us, and now it really is just time to fly, time to dance, time to be joyful, time to play in this cornucopia that is earth, with other people, with other beings, with
Yes.
other creatures. There's just no limit. So that's what I've been feeling and getting in these last few weeks. It's
Yeah,
just been
I feel
incredible.
I'm like in an antechamber of sort of preparation for more,
Mm,
more, more, and more. It's like there are these phases that I go through, like of being alone a lot of time, and just enjoying that really. And yeah, I do interact with people mostly online, basically,
mm,
because I work remote, but. I've been experiencing such a wanting to stay
mm,
just in that alone space
mm,
of
mm,
enjoying that. But I know it's sort of like an antechamber of something else, because it's always like
mm,
this evolving into more
mm,
experiences. But I don't care really, because I'm enjoying what I'm living right now, So it's sort of
mm,
like, yeah, this is it. It's always this is it,
mm,
basically.
mm,
And so I believe we've come
mm,
full circle in
mhm,
the whole
mhm.
cornucopia thing.
Yes. And yeah, and for me too, it's been like a very inner time. So me too, I haven't been very active on Facebook or social media, or saying, sometimes there were no words. And even
Yeah.
yesterday I was feeling, oh my gosh, am I ready for this show? Am I ready to sort of, you know, go public, and what am I going
Yeah.
to say? Because I have no words. And then I had a really good long sleep, and I woke up this more today and I said, yep, I'm ready. You know, I'm ready. It's time. So, and I knew it's going to be another beautiful dance with you, dear Tanya, and with each one who is participating, whether now or much later. You also are very much part in this timeless space of our now moment.
Oh, yeah, and we're so thankful that you come and play with us each and every month, and we keep on playing even when we're not on the show. Basically, it's like we have a kind of a playground, all of us together,
Mm,
where we expand potentials and possibilities. And this Easter weekend, we didn't even notice we were booking for Easter weekend, really, honestly, but it's so appropriate for this theme.
mm. Yeah, we didn't. We're just like, okay, whatever, you know. And also
This,
yeah, and also the titles that we give, we just have no idea at the time when we title something what's going to develop. But it just all happens in this such beautiful way.
yeah. Oh, and thank you for your donations. We really appreciate those very much, and we receive it as love. Um,
Mm.
so it feels it's money in the form of love, and
And a big
it's just
hug,
got,
and it's like
yeah,
saying a big
it's got
hug.
this feeling, it's so
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. And we
Thank
are
you.
grateful for each one for participating, for all the likes, for the sharings, for just
Yeah.
being you on this incredible, amazing journey that we're all on. And yes, until next time.
Until next time, enjoy fully the cornucopia of you. Thank